Have you ever watched a couple argue over something that seemed almost ridiculously small? Maybe it was a restaurant bill, a new pair of shoes, a subscription, a purchase that cost $200. One partner says, "You spent that much without even talking to me?" The other says, "It's my money too. Why do I need permission?" And suddenly, a $200 purchase has turned into a 40-minute argument about respect, responsibility, and who actually gets to make decisions in the relationship. But here is the interesting part. Sometimes the argument really is about the money. If you are struggling to pay your bills, spending $200 without discussing it is a financial problem. But sometimes the money is only the surface. Because underneath that argument may be another question. Do you trust me? Do you respect my judgment? Do I have an equal voice here? Do you appreciate what I contribute? Or do you think your contribution gives you more power than mine? This is why money can become one of the most emotionally charged subjects in a relationship. Because money does not only represent dollars. It can represent security, freedom, control, contribution, and even respect. And once money starts carrying all of those meanings, a simple disagreement about spending can become a much bigger fight. So let's look at what is really happening. First, money can become a proxy for control. Think about a couple where one person earns considerably more. At first, the arrangement may seem completely reasonable. One person earns more. The other earns less. But over time, a subtle shift can happen. The person who earns more may start feeling that they should have more influence over financial decisions. After all, they may think, "I am bringing in more money, so shouldn't I have more say?" The other partner may experience the exact same situation very differently. They may start thinking, "I may earn less, but that doesn't mean I should have less of a voice." And now the argument isn't really about the purchase. It is about power. Who gets to decide? Who has to explain themselves? Who feels entitled to say yes? And who feels like they have to ask for permission? This is where money becomes dangerous in a relationship. Not because money itself is dangerous, but because financial contribution can quietly become confused with personal authority. Earning more does not automatically make someone's opinion more important. And contributing less money does not mean contributing less to the relationship. That brings us to another major source of conflict. The money scripts we learn long before we ever meet our partner. Most people do not enter adulthood with a completely neutral attitude toward money. We learn things about money from our families. From what we experienced growing up. From whether money felt abundant or scarce. From whether our parents argued about bills. From whether saving was treated as responsible or spending was treated as something to enjoy. One person may have grown up hearing, "Save everything. You never know when something could go wrong." Another may have grown up hearing, "You work hard. You should enjoy your money." Now imagine those two people falling in love. Eventually, they move in together. They combine their finances. And suddenly, the two financial philosophies they learned as children are sitting at the same kitchen table. One sees a large purchase and thinks, "This is irresponsible." The other sees the same purchase and thinks, "This is completely normal." The first person is thinking about security. The second is thinking about freedom. The first wants to protect the future. The second wants to enjoy the present. Neither person necessarily thinks they are doing anything wrong. They are simply protecting different psychological needs. And this is why telling someone, "You just need to be better with money," often doesn't solve the problem. Because you may be arguing with a lifetime of conditioning, not a single spending decision. For one person, saving creates peace. For another, saving too aggressively creates anxiety because it feels like life is constantly being postponed. And if neither partner understands that difference, every financial conversation can sound like a personal attack. You are reckless. You are controlling. You are selfish. You are cheap. You don't know how to enjoy life. You don't care about our future. At that point, the financial discussion has stopped being about numbers. It has become a discussion about character. And that is where resentment starts to grow. Because sometimes money becomes a scoreboard. One partner looks at the bank account and thinks, I'm carrying more than you. The other may look at the relationship and think, you only count what I earn. You don't count what I do. This happens especially when contributions are very different. One person may earn more money. The other may handle more household responsibilities. One may work longer hours. The other may manage the children, the home, appointments, errands, and countless invisible tasks. And both can eventually feel underappreciated. The higher earner may think, I'm working this hard for us. Why doesn't that seem to matter? The other partner may think, you act like your paycheck is the only thing keeping this relationship alive. Now money has become a scoreboard for sacrifice. And once couples start keeping score, almost every contribution can become evidence. I paid for dinner. I paid the electricity bill. I worked late. I took care of the kids. I gave up a promotion because of the family. I've been paying for this for years. The relationship starts to sound less like a partnership and more like an accounting department. And this leads to one of the most important distinctions in financial relationships. Equality is not always the same thing as fairness. Equality asks, are we contributing the same amount? Fairness asks, are we contributing in a way that makes sense for our circumstances? Those are not always the same question. Imagine one partner earns $6,000 a month and the other earns $3,000. A 50-50 split may look equal. Both are paying exactly half. But depending on their responsibilities and circumstances, it may not feel equally manageable. Now add children. Add childcare. Add household responsibilities. Add career sacrifices. Add the fact that one partner may have reduced their working hours to support the family. Suddenly, calculating fairness becomes much more complicated than simply dividing every bill in half. And the reverse can also be true. Sometimes one partner genuinely is carrying an unfair financial burden. So fairness does not automatically mean everyone contributes according to their income. It means the couple actually discusses what each person contributes, what each person needs, and what both people consider reasonable. This distinction matters because couples can spend years arguing about equality while never agreeing on what fairness actually means. And that brings us to something relationship researcher John Gottman identified in his work on couples. He distinguishes between problems that can be solved and what he calls perpetual problems. Perpetual problems are recurring disagreements rooted in differences between partners. They often involve personality, values, priorities, or deeply held beliefs. And money is one of the clearest examples. The natural saver may never become a natural spender. The person who loves spontaneity may never become as comfortable with financial planning as their partner. The person who values security may always want a larger emergency fund. The person who values freedom may always feel that too many financial restrictions make life smaller. The goal is not necessarily to turn one person into the other. The goal is to learn how to manage the difference without turning it into a battle over who is the better human being. Because if the underlying difference never gets addressed, the same argument will keep returning. Maybe this month it is a $200 purchase. Next month it is a vacation. Then it is a car. Then a credit card bill. Then a gift for a family member. The subject changes. But the emotional argument stays the same. And this is why couples sometimes think, we've had this exact argument 100 times. They probably haven't. They have had 100 different arguments carrying the same unresolved conflict. And there is another reason these fights become so exhausting. Couples often solve the purchase without solving what the purchase represented. Fine. I'll return it. Problem solved. Except it isn't. Because the person who wanted the purchase still feels controlled. And the person who objected still feels ignored. The transaction has been fixed. The relationship hasn't. So the next disagreement simply finds another place to appear. This is why the most useful question during a money argument may not be, "Who is right?" A better question might be, "What does this issue mean to each of us? What are you afraid will happen? What makes you feel controlled? What makes you feel unsafe? What makes you feel unappreciated? What feels unfair? And what do you actually need from me?" Those questions move the conversation away from accusation and toward understanding. Because the real argument may not be, "You spent too much." It may be, "I don't feel like my opinion matters." It may be, "I don't feel safe about our future." It may be, "I feel like you control me because you earn more." It may be, "I feel like everything I contribute gets ignored." It may even be, "I don't trust your judgment with our future." Those are much harder conversations than arguing about a receipt. But they are also much more important. And this is where money connects directly to what we discussed in the first video of this series. Financial infidelity is what happens when money becomes hidden. Secret accounts. Hidden purchases. Undisclosed debt. Financial decisions made behind a partner's back. But money does not have to be hidden to create relationship problems. Sometimes the money is completely visible. Both partners know exactly what was spent. Both know exactly what was earned. And they still keep having the same fight. Because the real conflict is somewhere underneath the numbers. It may be about control. It may be about security. It may be about freedom. It may be about appreciation. It may be about fairness. And sometimes, yes, it really is about the money. That distinction matters. The goal isn't to turn every financial disagreement into a psychological mystery. The goal is to notice when the same argument keeps returning, even after the financial problem has been solved. Because when that happens, you may not have a money problem anymore. You may have a relationship problem that money happens to be expressing. Sometimes the argument is about the money. But very often, the money is simply where the argument found a voice.